But after Mamta Banerjee, won power, and she has become a Bhindanwale. There was a huge folk singer at the time of in '88. His name was Chamkila. He was also murdered. His pregnant wife was also murdered. If you go to marriages, if there are no many of these people, they were kind of like Taliban. We are going to shoot your life. They put posters outside Hindu houses. You leave this village or city. Otherwise, your women will not be safe. Every month, month after month, for 2 years, for 1990 and 1991, 500 people killed every year. So in that 2 year period of this VP Singh and this Chandrasekhar, 11,000 Punjabis died.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Swarajya Conversations. My name is Sharan Sethi and I'm your host. Yesterday, we received a shocking piece of news. Punjabi artist and Congress leader Sidhu Moose Wala was shot dead by unknown assailants. And this has been one of the uh, reasons why security tensions are building up in Punjab, and this has been happening over the last few weeks. And a lot of activists, especially like Puneet Sahani, have been voicing their concerns over what has been happening in Punjab for several years, if I may say. And today they're proven right yet again. Puneet, thank you so much for joining me. Namaste, Sat Sri Akal, and I know it's late night.
Jai Ma Bharati. Thank you for inviting me, Sharan. Happy to speak to you again.
Happy to speak to you again too. But first of all, how are you? Because congratulations are in order. You're suspended from Twitter. How does that feel?
No, it's good. It means they are rattled. So they suspended me again, and that time it was this Ravi Singh Khalsa aid, and they had a rejoinder like Quillette sponsored like an investigative report, and it was like so damning for them, and they had nowhere to hide. At this time, like we have good reason. We'll speak in its term. I think it was orchestrated from the level of SGPC, which is the Roman Catholic Church of the fifth biggest religion. So in a way, like they have suspended me, which is kind of like a setback, because I was exposing them. But in a way, it's also heartening that one guy can rattle the Roman Catholic Church and their lies are being exposed. So my team takes heart from that.
Well, I sometimes actually fail to understand how you managed to put up that smile, especially because you've gone on to receive death threats as well, and especially with the unfortunate incident yesterday where we saw Sidhu Moosewala getting shot multiple times. Uh, do you think there is a recurring pattern here?
So there are two things. It's also you have to keep your sense of humor as well, and there's I think by Faiz is like जिस दर्द से कोई मकतल को गया वो शाम सलामत रहती है ये जान तो आनी जानी है इस जान की कोई बात नहीं अगर बाजी इश्क की बाजी है जो चाहो लगा दो डर कैसा अगर जीत गए तो क्या कहना हारे भी तो बाजी मात नहीं actually I don't Sidhu Moosewala is a great artist and maybe we have time to speak about it but what happened that was exactly if you read the Oppo India story that was exactly the threat given to me and they do it in a reason it's like if somebody had to assassinate they just like find a sniper and shoot a bullet but the idea is to terrorize the populace and it's like this to give you an example that will be Lok Sabha happened Bengal elections everybody was like shouting Jai Shri Ram after Mamta Banerjee people thought there is a fight but after Mamta Banerjee won power and she has become a Bhindanwale and she has unleashed this and the opposition like she has terrorized and people have gone silent now, what will happen like this? Like, I don't know, Sidhu Moose Wala, people who don't understand Punjab, he's like Shah Rukh Khan and Salman Khan put together for Punjabis. There is no bigger hero than that. And he has as crazy following on the other side of Punjab. So you kill him in broad daylight. And what the threat against me was also, like perforate with bullets. Now, if like there is a nationalist, like law and order has crumbled, or a patriot, who basically he has no support from the state, they can't protect Sidhu Moosewala. So he will do a cost benefit analysis, and he will be very careful what he says. And if you are a criminal, or if you are a Khalistani, then you are basically said like you can force your will on a broad daylight on the biggest artist. So they will be empowered, and they have a history. So there was a huge folk singer at the time of in '88. His name was Chamkila. He was also murdered. His pregnant wife was also murdered. And there was nothing in Punjab. Punjab used to have a death silence after 3 or 4 p.m. in villages. There's nobody outside. It was only KPS Gill who brought this, in 19, I don't know, it was they had issued a fatwa. People don't know. Like, again, Sharon, we have to do an episode. What if you saw Kashmir files? Anybody can discuss with me about Kashmir files, and I'll say the Khalistanis did all what was happened in Kashmir files. They did it for a longer term and on a bigger scale. So they basically had an issue on fatwa, like if you go to a Jagrata, we'll burn you alive. They put posters outside, and this is what Tavleen Singh has posted. All of these have gone silent. Shekhar Gupta, Tavleen Singh, Ramesh Vinayak, they're still all people alive. So, for example, there is one story by Tavleen Singh. She says, if you go to marriages, if there are no many of these people, they were kind of like Taliban. We are going to shoot you alive. They put posters outside Hindu houses. You leave this village or city, otherwise your women will not be safe. These are all stories that you can read in India Today's archive. Shekhar Gupta has written stories like this. But this was Punjab, and no, KPS Gill brought back to life. This is what, any artist, he speaks anything or anybody, they just want to terrorize the populace. So this is what is happening.
No, I don't know if you would like to get political about this, but obviously, since there is a change in government, the situation seems to deteriorate. And this is just an observation because Congress has been in power for the last few years, and they may or may not have done a certain amount of measures to curb the Khalistani threat. But within a month or so, just a few weeks after the new government in Punjab is there, there are multiple incidents that are taking place. So, what are your thoughts on this?
It's very dangerous. So the thing is, whether we don't know whether it's malevolence or incompetence, but when you are dealing with a sensitive situation, you don't know. I want to give you an example, and we will take an example from Punjab. This all jihadism, all this ISIS and all this Al Qaeda, if you go to the root, what was that one event that triggered it? It was again, like Shah was in Iran and he was really, what do you say, modernizing the country. It was unimaginable. And this Jimmy Carter sitting, release this militants or something like that. And you release that, and they basically upturned the state. It was the same in Punjab. We had a Bhagwant Mann like leader in 1985. His name was Barnala. And what he did was, like again, there was some idiots like release these militants, and human. He just released about 2,000 of militants, and and there was like some judge bans. He said the killings in Punjab shot up 8 times. So again, now for example, what is SGPC or this Punjab government or all these idiots are demanding? Like there are some Sikh political prisoners. We want to release them. No, these people have killed thousands of people. Like even if you look at Beant Singh, he is like this great chief minister who again saved Punjab, because when he is not there, you can look at figures. Our team has posted on Sikh Seva, and I recommend everybody who is interested in this thing to go to that Twitter page. Our team page is still active, and that's the finest resource, finest research material you'll find in Punjab. Before Beant Singh and KPS Gill comes, this 2 year period when we have idiots like VP Singh and Chandrasekhar, in 18 months to 2 years, 50% of all the killings that happened over a decade happened in that month, right? So Beant Singh comes, and to give you a figure of that, how many people died in Mumbai? 260, 166, right, or something. 500 people were being killed in Punjab every month. Mind you, this every month, month after month, for 2 years. For 1990 and 1991, 500 people killed every year. So in that 2 year period of this VP Singh and this Chandrasekhar, 11,000 Punjabis died. And when Beant Singh and KPS Gill come, in 6 to 8 months, they bring the killings to zero. And now they killed that person, Beant Singh, who basically gave us democracy. Otherwise, there was no democracy in Punjab.
And what do you
They
think was
killed this
the
thing.
distinction between both of their administrations? What was the approach that went well for Beant Singh and KPS Gill? KPS Gill, though we
KP,
know in popular culture, uh, but Beant Singh for that matter, because a lot of governments after that in Punjab have also maybe intentionally or unintentionally tried to resolve the security situation over there, but I think they've failed to a very large extent. I'm sure you would agree.
no, you're absolutely right. I just, okay, so I, okay, I forgot. I think there was an important point I wanted to make, but KPS Gill was just saying like this is a law and order situation. It's not some religious demand or something like that. Like if you see like Bhindranwale, his right hand man, he lost a Gurdwara election in Beas from Jeevan Singh Umranangal. What he was basically trying to drill into the government, that this is a law and order problem, and like let the police deal with it and the military be at the backstore, and you just don't interfere in our work. But some would come, Barnala would come, we want to heal heart and minds or something like that, or some Chandrasekhar would come, there are no demands, we want to talk with the terrorists or some, they would do it. So what happened in that, like KPS Gill did the job, and what do you say, Beant Singh and PV Narasimha Rao ensured there was no political interference. That was it. That's all you have to understand. Like these people are not what do you say, religious people or by any chance. Like again, I referred that is out of print. It's one of the most remarkable field studies done by three great sociologists of Punjab, and all three are still alive. And we have basically made a PDF, and I am going to release it on our Telegram channel as well. I request your people to join. If you read that, nobody joined for religion. They go to Maja, the most militancy infected region. They find how many people joined for police atrocities, 2.5%. How many people joined by military atrocities, 2.5%, exactly same. How many people joined for Blue Star, Bhindranwale, Delhi killings, Khalistan? These are the four, they say religious demand, 10%. 40% that joined for fun, for raping. This is again an excellent, the one of the greatest field reports done anywhere. So what Gill was saying, this is criminality. You don't interfere. Let us deal it as a law and order problem. And again, oh sorry, what I wanted to say was the point I was forgetting. When they killed Beant Singh, they killed 13 bystanders. They were innocent. They did nothing. No, they people don't have salaries, like SGPC is saying. These Sikh prisoners have been kept in. So the only person making the noise in Punjab is Ravneet Bittu. He's like, our families were killed. These people are innocent. They don't have lives. What kind of nonsense they are making? So again, these people are criminals. They are being made into martyrs or some religious fighters, which is very very dangerous.
there's always this ongoing joke about how Punjabis are Canadians in a way. You know all those jokes. Uh, but
Mm.
today, unfortunately, and not in a good way, Punjab is being called the America of India because of all the gun violence that is taking place, right? And Punjab specifically has that problem of unregulated arms and ammunition being out there. So why is it exclusive that this particular state suffers with that problem, and why haven't we been able to curb down on that? And at the end of the day, that is a law and order issue. So it's a direct responsibility of the state to make sure that nothing happens.
So again, this is actually a community specific thing. So even for example, like it's the Jats. I'm not demonizing the Jats. So the greatest people who saved Punjab, KPS Gill is a Jat, Beant Singh is a Jat. The greatest, I would say, religious. He is the real Gandhi without having to hide anything is Jeevan Singh Umranangal. It's a pity nobody knows. They're all Jats, whose people saved Punjab and like really helped. But what you find in that field study. So if you look at the gurus, all 10 gurus are Khatris, right? But not a single Khalistani leader was Khatri. So what they find in the field research, six Jats maybe like 10, 20, 25% of the population, but 60% of what do you say, the sorry, 60% of casualties were Jats, 80% of recruits were Jat, and 100%, like except there was some Malkia Singh from Khajala village, 100% of this leadership of this Khalistanis was Jat. And if you want to go in, that's actually a deeper subject. We should do it at a surface. Max Sweeney wrote a great book on cracker culture, and Thomas Sowell also wrote this book on white liberals and black rednecks. He basically shows, like countries like Afghanistan, where you don't have rule of law, and your culture becomes kind of like machismo, and assertion of that masculinity, and assertion on the other. And when you don't have rule of law, it kind of develops a dysfunctional culture. So for example,
Right.
Sidhu Moose Wala has died. He is a great talent, and maybe we should even talk about what he was singing. But he was also singing a lot of nonsense, and what he's singing is basically hip hop that comes from deep American South, or like this inner city black culture. Or if you go to even UK, like this what do you say, Irish, or this Ulster County, where they have no rule of law, where they just have violence, they have endemic violence and lot of murder. They kind of develop that culture of hip hop. So it again, if you look at, for example, hip hop that is coming from, it's all about jad 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 jad. So it's a, even when you see, for example, there is honor killings. There's mostly Pakistani, but you Google honor killing, you'll find some episodes in Canada and, for example, Italy also. If you see the last name, they're all Jats. So there is actually a community problem. For example, I'm telling you, all gurus were Khatris. If you look at any field of human endeavor that makes you proud, industry, science, what do you say, anything, you name an endeavor, and I will say you, like, they're all dominated by Khatris. And you can't even say, they are the dominant community, they don't control the politics or the religion, but it's their culture that makes them prosper. So Khatris, all gurus, you don't find any Khalistani or like doing this kind of like gun violence or anything like that. So it's a cultural problem, it's not a Sikh problem.
Right. So it's like reliving that movie once again. As much as a stereotype Urta Punjab was, today it has become again about drugs, about gun violence, about artists and common people getting shot at the end of the day.
Sharon, I would politely like to disagree with it. I think the problem in Punjab is actually the SGPC.
Right.
And I just think it's, like there is a spiritual crisis. Because if you look at, this 100 years ago till the British came, there were so many sampradayas in this. That was like, you can follow anybody. Now they have just make like a fake copy of Wahhabi Islam. So there is no space to question. There is all about dogma. In some ways, like let's compare with Islam, for example. What we say is intolerant, right? So Indic religions are not confession based, we are knowledge based, right? So you can go to any guru, he gives you a knowledge and something. We don't say like, I believe in Rama and he's the Dashrath son, so I'm a Hindu. This is not the Indian idea. But they made Sikhism into like an Abrahamic religion, so you have to say, I believe in this. And even if you look at Christianity and Islam, they just have a positive affirmation. So Islam just says Muhammad is the prophet, I accept he is the prophet. Or Christianity, I say Jesus is the son of God. In Sikhism, they have made positive affirmation as well as negative affirmation. So you believe in the gurus, you believe in the Granth, and you say you don't believe in other religion. Basically, you don't believe in Hinduism. No, even Abrahamic religions don't have it. In Abrahamic religions, you have, anybody can print the Bible, or anybody can print the Quran or write a commentary. This is not. SGPC says if you basically print Guru Granth Sahib or verses of the Guru Granth Sahib from what do you say, internet, you have committed blasphemy. They say only they have the right to permit the book. So what they have created is kind of, it's not dharma anymore. It's a cult, and it's a more what do you say, suffocating cult than Wahhabism. So that is the reason there is a spiritual crisis. Anybody with intelligence, anybody with a sense of questioning,
Mhm.
wants to escape. So he wants to escape to Canada. He wants to escape to drugs. The poor people are escaping to missionaries. So I see that is actually the reason. It's a spiritual crisis in Punjab, and everybody wants to escape from it.
So you do believe that there is a popular resistance against that sort of imposition, because at the end of the day, an entire community that's so vibrant and colorful, who've actually stood up to these bullies long time ago, I'm sure will stand up right now as well.
I don't know. It's just like if like I would just recommend, KPS Gill. He was not just a great soldier. He was a great general. He was a great scholar, and he wrote these two books. One is called Knights of Falsehood, and the other is Endgame in Punjab, 1988 to 1993. And they are booklets, basically 30 pages, 50 pages. I recommend everybody. What you say, like Punjabis bounced back, and of course, we moved on. We came from partition, but it was not a given. Before KPS Gill went, Punjab, if you read how they were writing, the English language Tribune was writing as liberated country. They were not writing Punjab. The militants had forced that this is like the pure land of Khalistan. This is how they had to report. Everybody had given up that Punjab is gone. Like this Maja area where all this militancy was. So 5% of the police station had 70% of that militancy, and the field report also went there. You see, the land route to Kashmir is only through Maja. So if Maja had kind of broken off, the Indian Union would have disintegrated. It was just, this great man. And this great man had the right time. It just so happened Narsimha Rao was there, Beant Singh was there, and KPS Gill. You remove any one block from this thing, India was disintegrating. Punjab would have disintegrated if Punjab would have gone, Kashmir would have gone. So it is just our luck that such a great man and political environment became such that it survived. So if you read, like, clinically study what the situation was, as I told you, in 1990, 1991, 500 people being killed in Punjab every month for 2 years. If you read of that time, people didn't believe that this will survive. People was like, okay, Punjab is
Right.
gone.
But the larger point here is that these kind of incidents keep recurring unless there is a spiritual reconnection to what actual Sikhism is what you have been trying to advocate for a very long time. But even today, there is very little talk about Hindu Sikh unity, right? So, in that sense, if you were to put out a roadmap to spiritually reconnect Sikhs to Hindus. What would be your solutions? Because obviously, this sort of a change in mindset, this sort of a reform that you're talking about, generally takes years together.
No, it just basically starts with lies and ends with lies. This is basically no dharma, this is no religion. It's a cult. Like, if you basically, again, it's a thing. I can say it because I am, like, sitting in New York, right? And, I don't work for anybody that they can get me fired from the job. They can just, attack my character and, like, steal some pictures and make something like, but they have nothing. Like, nobody knows. I grew up in a Sikh family and I don't want to destroy somebody's faith. This, for example, 5Ks, which they have made fundamental to the Sikh identity, and they discriminate people on base whether they have the 5Ks or not. This was a fraud. This core, like, for example, like, if you are a Sikh woman, you have to use core. This was again a creation by the Singh Sabha. If you ask any, I want to do an experiment, any Sikh person, ask him, find the oldest person in your family and ask that oldest person who is the oldest woman he remembers. If that woman was born before 1915, her last name would have Devi, not Kaur. They have basically, for example, the Sikh liturgy has 5 prayers. So one of the most beautiful poems is like Chopai, that Guru Gobind Singh Ji writes. That had originally 29 verses. So SGPC has chopped. Nobody knows. There are people who are baptized because this happened 100 years ago. Average age is 70 years. So people who are baptized with faith, they recited these prayers all the time and they died. And they never knew that this prayer has been chopped. From 26 to 29 verses have been chopped. Why? Because the 29 verses, Kripa karo hum pe jagmata. So they want to just, like, they are basically a Pakistan in India, and wherever they find, connection with, Hinduism, they just want to chop it off, and they don't care even if it's Guru's words. It's the same with Pakistani mindset. They find Harappa and Mojo and Dodo. They're like, no, 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 we don't want anything. We don't want anything that builds our relationship with India or Sanatan. So what you are really dealing with is a Pakistani mindset, and Pakistani
Right.
mindset is a pathology. Yeah.
For the first time when I was actually introduced to Sidhu Moose Wala's music, I didn't even know how to pronounce his name properly. First of all,
Mm,
I was confused for most of the time, thinking, why is there a moose in between both of his names? But then one of my
right.
dearest Punjabi friends actually explained how the culture works. And then I sort
Mm,
of tried to understand, and ever since I had been listening to a lot of his songs. But yesterday
mm,
I saw your tweet explaining how there's a
mm,
lot of sympathy expressed directly to Khalistani sentiments, even in the lyrics that he writes, and a lot of Punjabi artists write as well. So in a sense, it's actually overshadowed with all the entertainment that they have to offer. And then that made me reconsider, should I actually continue listening to it at the cost of our national security, at the cost of, say, religious unity for that matter. So how deep is it entrenched into the Punjabi entertainment industry today?
So this is a very important point, and I would really like to address it. So first, my team put it. I was actually taking a vacation, but then this happened, and you also invited me to talk. If they are saying Sidhu Moose Wala is a Khalistani. No, you have to understand everything. So first thing is, compared to what? If you say, of course, he talks about gun, and there is like he's in a public concert, and he's saying everybody say I don't speak about. So you see, these bullies, they are basically pushing him to say something for Bhindranwale or Babbar Khalsa, right? So even if he has said this, I'm not denying it. On a scale of 1 to 10, it's maybe like 2. If you look at average Punjabi, what they are singing, it's 7 to 9 usually. So, and he's a, what do you say? His father was a army veteran, and he comes from a Congress family. And you say whatever, if you are right of center, maybe your sympathies lies with BJP. But if you ask from a Punjabi, BJP is basically there to clean, whatever mess this Akalis make. The Congress has basically stood against Akali narrative. Congress has fired militancy, so people respect Congress. So he stood from Congress. And I want to ask, I don't know, Sharon, what's your age? I'm going to be 38 in a couple of days, right? When I was in college, everybody used to put Che Guevara shirt, right? They didn't know what Che Guevara did. The Punjabis don't know what Bhindranwala did, and the state should be fought it. I want to give you an example. This Bhindranwala, nobody knows what he did. They just, government doesn't say what sins he did. He was living in Canada, where like this propaganda against, like, he was this great state and he stood up against the state. This is nothing. Did the government or anybody tell him that Bhindranwala said, like, if you don't release my bus by 5 p.m. in 1 hour, I'm going to kill 5,000 Hindus? We had to do this job. If he had listened to this and then he had said something, then I would have said. But people of Punjab, these people, this young generation, it's not the older. Gurdas Man is not saying it, Hansraj Hans is not saying it. Anybody from one generation up, why are they not saying it? Because they saw it. This generation, he was born in 95 after terrorism had ended. So nobody knows. And of course, you go to Canada and there's all this nonsense. So if the government had done its job, they had exposed, okay, this is this Bindranwale, this is what he has said, this is what he has done. You find on internet, you will nothing. Especially if you're in Canada, you go to Gurdwaras, you will hear nothing of what Bindranwala has said and done. You will just hear he was this saint and he stood up to the Indian army and he sacrificed his life. So how can you blame him? Like, we didn't know what Che Guevara did. Everybody was wearing Che Guevara shirts when I was in college, and that guy, he comes from a very poor and very what do you say, a backward part of Punjab. Like, if you look at Mansa, the part of he comes from, it's a very very backward region. So what does he know? I went to one of the top engineering schools, and even then, I don't know, dozens and dozens used to wear Che Guevara shirt. So we are all, there is a certain brain, and there is a pressure of peer groups. So the government never give you the knowledge, and then he has the peer pressure of everybody. So if he said something, I don't hold against him. Of course, I am the biggest opponent of Bindranwale, and our team has done more to expose Bindranwale than government with all the resources has ever done. So I'm nowhere justifying Bindranwale, but I completely understand why some people are saying Bindranwale is a saint, because nobody has exposed him.
Right. And I hope you continue to do the amazing work that you have been doing. It's not easy to see somebody get death threats on a daily basis, and you're just so calm about it. I hope you're safe, first of all. I hope your family is safe. And I hope we can reconnect again to discuss this at length. And I hope Punjab can see better times in the future.
Yeah, like it's like the best thing and the worst thing about human beings are we get used to everything,
Right.
and Punjab is the foremost example of this. So it just gets used to all kinds of nonsense, but it just gets used to life after tragedy as well. So Punjabis are resilient people, but we see what happens, and we should definitely join forces and help Mother India all we can.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Puneet. Namaste.
Jai Ma Bharti.
Ladies and gentlemen, please do subscribe to Swarajya. This is your host Sharan Sethi, and we'll be bringing more such conversations in the near future on a daily basis. Until then, this is your host Sharan Sethi signing off.